Hi, today I will be reflecting on my experience of story listening while watching Blind Eye documentary on the stolen generation, which shared the lived experience of Aboriginal children who were forcibly separated from their families under assimilation policies. This story is historical, significant, deeply emotional. My focus is not to retell the documentary but to reflect on how I listen, how my assumptions changed, and how this experience influences my approach to inclusive practice in early childhood education. Before watching, I intentionally prepared myself to be in a calm and distraction free space. I watched the documentary once to understand the content, and a second time to practice mindful listening. Afterwards, I sat in a silence to reflect. As Ugunmer emphasized in the practice of Dadiri, deep listening requires being fully present without interrupting, judging, or rushing to respond. It is about slowing down and allowing the story to be heard with respect. I also approach the documentary through the pedagogy of listening from Reggio Emilia approach. Edwards Gandini and Foreman highlights that listening is an active and reflective process that values the perspective and emotions of others. With this in my mind, I focused on only on the words but also on the emotions and lived experience behind them. I practiced internal listening, noticing my own reactions, discomfort, and assumptions. One of the biggest challenge was emotional discomfort. Hearing about the breeding books and eugenics policy was deeply upsetting. It made me realize that Aboriginal children were dehumanized and treated as an object rather than a human being. I had to concisely slow myself down and remain present so I could continue listening without judgment. I also came to understand that the trauma of this policy continues across the generation. Before watching the documentary, I believe that European culture brought mostly positive changes to Australia. However, listening to the lived experience of the stolen generation challenged my belief. The eugenics policy aimed to control Aboriginal families, remove culture, and erase identities. Children were forcibly separated and denied basic human rights. This reflection helped me recognize how power and privilege were used in justify the discrimination. One of the most impactful moments was when two brothers were playing while their mother was cooking and government officials suddenly arrived and took them away. Their normal life was destroyed in an instant. This moment showed how exclusion fractures a child's sense of belonging. Press states that belonging is not simply about physical proximity, but it's rooted in emotional connection and recognition. This scene deeply moved me and reinforced how separation damages identity and relationships. Listening to this story also made me reflect on my own privilege. My culture, language, and identity were never taken away from me. I realized that I come from a position of privilege and cannot fully understand the life experience of Aboriginal families. This awareness helped me see that true inclusion requires acknowledging historical injustice and respecting every person's dignity and identity. Story listen connect strongly to inclusive practice in early childhood education. By listening deeply and without judgment, I can better understand diverse perspective and build respectful relationship with children and family. Press emphasize that belonging is a relational and built through recognition and connection with community. Children contribution also extend beyond spoken words. Callaghan highlights that artworks, visual symbols, and other form of expression provide insight into children's understanding of right and identity. Incorporating multiple modes of communication support inclusive practice and reinforce children's right to be heard and respected. Though this experience of reflective story listening I am developing as an educator who values every voice, honors culture and history, and actively advocates for inclusive practice. This documentary not only challenged my assumptions but strengthened my commitment to listening with empathy and supporting belonging of all children and families. Thank you.